Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how I cracked the code to smoke a delicious smoked brisket. To be honest, brisket has intimidated me for years because, number one, the size of a whole brisket is just so big. Since I don't have a large offset smoker, I had to figure out how to do it with a small backyard smoker. Second, brisket doesn't behave like other cuts of meat, so I needed to learn how to make adjustments. And third, my first couple of attempts were frankly not that great. These were humbling experiences. Here you see my last attempt on a small flat brisket. This was good practice to tackle a whole brisket. Here's an 18-pound prime whole beef brisket I picked up at Costco. The first step was to trim up the brisket, leaving a thin layer of fat on the surface. Then I cut it in half, separating the flat and point ends. This was necessary to fit the brisket in my small smoker. Next, I smeared mustard on the surface of the meat, then seasoned with salt and pepper. I started smoking the two halves of brisket with red oak at midnight. I also added the trimmings to render the fat for tallow. I monitored the temperature every hour to make sure the smoking chamber was between 225 and 250 degrees. After 6 hours, I pulled the meat from the smoker and wrapped both the point and flat chunks in butcher paper. The wrapped chunks of meat were then returned to the smoker. I pulled the trimmings which rendered fat for tallow. I set it aside to allow it to firm up to use later. The brisket cooked for another 2 hours for the flat and 3 hours for the point. I took the meat out when the internal temperature reached 203 degrees. After pulling from the smoker, I unwrapped the meat, smeared tallow over the surface, then rewrapped them. The wrapped flat and point chunks were placed in a cooler to rest for another 8 hours. Okay, so this brisket was started at midnight, and right now it is 5 o'clock. So that means it's from start to finish, it's taken about 17 hours, 16, 17 hours. I'm going to pick up here, flip it around. This is the point end. Look at all that fat. Oh, goodness. To the cutting board. Okay, ready? Let's see how it looks here. It's very soft, very.
Look at that.
Let's see how this looks. There it is right there. So there you have it. This was my process to make smoked brisket on my small backyard smoker. It's taken several attempts, but I've learned from the lessons of my past experiences. I have now cracked the code.